you're ready, Mark.
All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. Looks like we have everybody here. Additions to the agenda, I think we have two of them.
Yep.
One under consent and one under personnel. Entertain adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
Got a motion from Cheryl,
Second.
second from Heidi. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. District 741 is proud of Matthew Leeser, grade 12, for being appointed the Stearns County Youth Service Task Force for 2016-17. And we have review and consider approval of the following athletic assignments for the 2016-17 school year. Junior high boys basketball.
I want to do public comment first, just in
Oh, I'm
case, and
sorry.
then go to approve and correct the minutes.
Why did that go? Oh, I see, consent.
Yep. Public
Oh,
comment
I
first.
just went, okay, I'm
Yep.
sorry. Public comment, anybody here for public comment? Doesn't look like it. Then I'll go down to number 7, approve and correct the minutes for the for November 15th, 2016-17 school year board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I got a motion from Kella
Second.
and a second from Lou. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Now we'll go on to consent agenda.
That's where you're.
Yeah, and then that's number 1, review and consider the following athletic assignment for 2016-17 school year. Boys basketball, Brad Pence. If you remember, we had some confusion a couple board meetings ago. Boys and girls split the season, so that's why he is basically doing both.
Yeah, we had, at the time of that meeting, he had been approved or selected to be the girls' junior high basketball coach. The boys' selections came up, there were a couple candidates that needed an interview, and now we're suggesting that the board approve him as the boys' junior high basketball coach also.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I got a motion from Heidi,
I'll second.
second from Cheryl. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. We're going to move on to business, review and consider approval of the audit of the 2015-16 school year.
And we have John Archer here to present the audit to the board.
Okay. Do we need to move or anything?
No, I think he'll walk you through the audit. You've got paper copies of it. If you could, though, John, grab the mic for you. That way, talk kind of in the center of it.
Go right in the middle here, that way I can make sure you're all paying attention.
There you go.
Okay, well, thank you for having me here. When I was getting ready for this meeting, what I was thinking to myself was, if I were on the school board, what would I care about? What would I want to know about how the audit went? So what I came up with was, what kind of an audit opinion, are we getting a clean opinion? How are our fund balances doing? Are we spending our money how we should? And are we in compliance with everything we're supposed to be? So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today, if that works for all of you. Okay, we're going to start with the thicker report first, called Audited Financial Statements. And so let's go ahead, we're going to flip into let's go to page 3. So if you all remember last year when I came out here, I think I spent a little bit of time talking about the auditor's report, what it is, what it isn't. So I'm not going to rehash all that this year. I'm going to jump right to the opinion section on the top of the page here. And right here, it talks about whether we think your financial statements are correct or not. The opinion we're giving is an unmodified or clean opinion. So this is the one that you want. This is us saying that we think everything looks good. Okay? Let's look at some numbers now. We're going to start with the general fund on page 44. Okay, looks like everyone's pretty much there. The way this is laid out, it's a budget to actual comparison. And so what actually happened during the years in the third column over, I'm going to compare that to your final budget, which is right before that. So starting with revenues first, total revenues came in at $9,878,000. If we look at that compared to your budget, you're about $42,000 below what you planned on. If we look at that in terms of a $9 million budget, that's pretty darn close. You had some pretty good budgeting. On the expenditure side, expenditures came in at $9,428,000, about $10,000 away from what you planned on. So that, again, that's even closer yet. Really close budgeting on the revenue and the expenditure side here. Looking at your expenditures and looking at the detail there, you're pretty much in line with what we'd expect to see. The bulk of your expenditures are on regular instruction, third line down, just as they should be, because that's what you're in the business of doing, is teaching kids. Other big expenditures you have, exceptional instruction, which would be your special ed, and then pupil support. These kind of fall in line with what I'd expect to see, so that looks good. Overall, if we go down to the third to bottom line here, net change in fund balance, your fund balance increased this year by $450,000. You budgeted $481,000 of an increase, so you're about $31,000 below what you planned on. But still, if we look at that, a $450,000 increase in fund balance is phenomenal to see. Really good. Ending fund balance in the general fund, $1.59 million. It's not on this page, but what is your unassigned fund balance, so what's available for your discretionary spending, is $884,000. District has a policy on what you want that target to be. And I think I talked about this last year as well. Your policy is 8% of budgeted expenditures. Right now, you're at about 9.3. So it was nice to see that increase in fund balance this year. It kind of brought you up within kind of the realm of what your policy is. So that looked really good to me. Okay, makes sense so far?
So our work is done, right?
Yeah, time to go home.
Yeah. that's what I asked. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you questions while you go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if our fund balance looks really good right now, and we are roughly halfway through our operating levy that we're working with right now, according to the numbers that we forecasted at that time, it starts to use some of that fund balance up. Are we set to be able to make that work? Is that the wrong place? for
Yeah,
that question?
your audit really won't tell you that. What the audit will tell you is just the finances that occurred last year.
Right.
Certainly, as I meet with the financial committee, we'll talk about that.
So then we'll go over
Yes,
that.
yes, my budget is, but to answer your question, my budget is built to go high enough so that as we start to make the slide back downward,
Yeah,
we'll reach the end of the referendum, at least try to, that's my
how high do
goal.
you expect us to go?
Pardon me?
How high would you expect that to have to go?
At the unencumbered, I'm looking at just hitting a little over 1 million.
Okay,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on. We're going to go to page 48. Page 48 is a snapshot of what we call the non-major funds for the district. They're called non-major because there's just not as much going on in them. So they get kind of shoved to the back of the financials. It's kind of an extra. But basically what's included in here is food service and community service. Looking at food service first, revenues total $532,000, expenditures of $495,000, so your fund balance increased $37,000. Ending fund balance in this fund is $65,000. Okay, Community service is the next column over. Revenues came in just a little bit under 500,000, 499. Expenditures of 487. Ending fund balance is $157,000. You all have that workout facility. That helps a lot in your community service fund. We don't typically see a fund balance like this in that fund. So that's good to see.
So you see it mostly at zero, or?
Yeah, we see a zero, we see
Less than
negatives,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you've got a nice healthy fund balance there. Okay, moving on, I'm gonna have you jumping all over the place here. We're gonna go to page 19.
Do we have a comparison of what last year was for?
For the non-major, we do not, yeah. Okay, page 19, we already talked about the first column, the general fund. Debt service is the next fund in. Debt service is a fund where there's really not a whole lot to say about it because it's kind of pre-prescribed. You know what your levy is going to be when you issue debt. You know what your principal and interest payments are going to be. You have to levy at 105% per Minnesota statutes, and so you're doing that. Ending fund balance in this fund is $162,000. Also not on this page, but your total bonds is just a hair under $5 million, so $4.98 million. Okay, next column over is building construction. Quite a bit of activity in this year in building construction. Mostly if you look at the expenditure side in capital outlay. So your capital outlay is $620,000. What this consists of is the elementary school roof, finishing that up, elementary school doors, stadium project got wrapped up, and heating and cooling overhaul got wrapped up. If you remember last year, related to the stadium project, we had an extra audit included in here because you had federal expenditures over $500,000. That didn't happen this year, and so you don't have that extra audit this year. Some cost savings to the district because of that. Okay, questions so far on the numbers? Okay, let's talk about internal controls. We're gonna go to page 53. This is the part where you hear me tell you don't have enough accounting staff that you hear every year. But we gotta say it every year. So because of that, because you don't have enough accounting staff, in terms of having a perfect segregation of duties, we report that in here. I'll do a pretty good job of mitigating it though, the best you can, but fact is, you just don't have enough people to get all of your accounting duties segregated how they should be. You'd have to hire quite a few people and you're not really in the business of paying accountants.
So where are we at compared to other schools like us?
I'd say you're probably on par.
So it's not that we're doing something that's not normal, we're trying to remain fiscally sound?
Exactly, yeah. There's a cost benefit to it, and really, if you want to have perfect segregation of duties, you'd have to hire a lot of people. You'd have to have a separate person for payroll, for all different functions, and then have enough people for backup so that if one person leaves, someone else can step in. There's no overlap. And the business manager can't have access to any of it. So it would take a lot to get there.
Now, of course, if the board would like me to hire those people to help us in the office,
You'd be happy to submit a new budget.
yep.
So that's segregation of duties. Next page, we have financial statement preparation. What we're doing here is letting the users of the financial statements know that we've written them up for you. This is another really common item. Next page, page 55. What we're talking about here is over the course of the audit. If we get your information from you, and when we're going through and we're doing our test work, if we see something that needs to be adjusted or tweaked, we're gonna do that for you. And that's how we get you to that clean opinion that I talked about earlier. Well, we're letting the users of the financials know that we did have to post adjustments to get you to that clean opinion. I will say though that the number of adjustments, and they're in the other report if you want to take a look at them, has decreased pretty significantly compared to last year. Things really went well this year. So we're making progress towards, I would say if there's a control finding that you can get away from, this is probably the one. And I think you're getting closer and closer to it.
So does that actually mean, like, if you see something that recorded in the wrong account, you will get it to the right account? Because I
Correct.
saw in one of the reports previous, it looked like we had moved some dollars. It had to do with the instructional staff and some others. It looked like dollars were possibly
Sure,
moved there. That
yeah.
could either by us, but you would take that if we have categorized it wrong.
Yep, correct. And same with like if you have a receivable booked but needs to be adjusted to a different number, and we have to do it for you, that kind of thing as well. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Page 56, we're talking about, on the next 2 pages actually, we're talking about compliance with Minnesota statutes. And so what we look at during the audit is, the state auditor has a list of different things they want us to look at to make sure you're complying with what you should be. We have 2 things that we noted this year. One is related to the track update that happened this year. So the statute says that before you make your final payment to a contractor, you have to get what's called a withholding affidavit, or a Form IC-134 they call it. And you've gotten that on all of your projects, except it wasn't received on the track update. And so it's noted in the audit. I don't think it's going to be an issue going forward. And Bob and Joan and I spent some time talking about it too. I think it was overlooked. Other thing that we have, this is also related to the track, and I'm on page 57 now, is that you received some quotes related to the project, but you didn't hang on to them. You didn't keep them. And so when we came out for the audit and we looked for them, they weren't there for us to look at. I don't think that's going to happen again either.
No, we've talked about that. We did get the quotes, but we just didn't keep them. So we've talked about what we need to do to make sure that when we get quotes like that, they get to Joan, and we
How-
attach them.
How long do you have to keep a quote for that type of project?
I would say after you get through your audit, you're probably fine getting rid of it.
Okay. So there's no statute on
Correct.
anything like that, okay.
So, but we don't have an issue. If he's missing a quote, you could just go to the vendor and get another one.
Yeah, I
Because they
suppose,
would have a copy of what they quoted.
correct.
And all we
The-
were missing was the copy.
Correct. The problem is the statute.
Says you're supposed
it says
to have it on.
you have to retain it.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And we missed it. We just didn't keep the one quote. We kept the one that we went with, but we didn't keep the other one.
Correct. Yep. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about student activities now. I'm going to go to page 63. So if you all remember last year, I came out and I kind of beat you up a little bit on student activities. You know, we had a number of things that were going on that probably could be tweaked and improved. You all did a really good job of listening to me, which I like. I like to be listened to. You really did a good job of cleaning these up. We have a couple things still kind of hanging out there. Some of it's actually already been taken care of since we came out there. Really did a good job cleaning these up. So what I do have here, the first one I have is related to check requests. So student activity funds, if you think about what an activity fund is, it's students' money. It's for the students, raised by the students. And because of that, the student has to authorize the purchase of whatever you're buying. It has to be approved. It has to be a formal check request submitted. Obviously, you had some early in the year before we came out and did the audit last year. There was a couple that were missed later on in the year too. I think there was maybe 2 of them that we saw. But really, you could definitely see the difference when we came out and did the audit, the timing on how many check requests were submitted for reimbursement. Things looked much better, and I suspect this is going to go away next year. Other things that we have, student activity accounts that maybe don't qualify as an activity fund. What we're talking about here is the elementary media club. And actually,
It's already been taken care of.
it's been taken care of, so that's going to go away next year. And then the last one I have on the last page of the audit, actually, student activity funds with no activity. So the way that the Department of Education guide is written is if you've got an activity fund with no activity for 2 years, nothing happens in it for 2 years, you gotta either spend some money or you gotta get rid of it. That's what they want to see you do. This is the middle school play and the cross-country funds. And so.
We'll
you're
have
gonna
those
take a
taken
look
care of
at it
too.
and-
Yep.
Yep.
So
Use
how do you
it.
get rid of it? Do you
You
blend
can-
it with something else?
You can donate it to another activity fund.
I got you.
Yeah.
Because this is the whole area that we're really not supposed to be directly involved, but we're supposed to watch it all take place.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. You
Yeah,
kind of
it
have a
is.
fiduciary responsibility for it, but you really have no say in what
Yeah,
happens with it. Yeah,
that's
I
very
know.
interesting to me.
Yeah.
So how do you, so to transfer those funds, do you have to have some students involved with it? And,
No, I believe we can just transfer it. Typically, we talk with Max or whoever's been involved in it, we decide what we're gonna do with it, whether we're gonna reactivate it so that it's used, or whether it moves. It's going to move to the students. It's not going to move
Yeah.
just to our general fund. It will move to the students' account somewhere. It could go into the, you know, the leadership group, you know, that type of thing, so.
Yeah. As long as it
But we'll
stays
move it.
within an
Yeah.
activity fund, you're fine.
Yeah, but we just didn't realize that those two had been left inactive.
Questions on the audit at all?
So, previous audits that we had a few years back had a
Yes.
lot more comparisons of 2 years.
Sure.
And Mark addressed that a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
Do you do an option where we have a comparison in this
Absolutely. If
report?
you would like to see that.
Does
we
that
can-
cost more?
I would say it'd be nominal.
Um, Then I would like us as a board to maybe look at that.
Sure.
When you're looking at these things, for me, it's very interesting always to compare 2 years. And you have a little bit that's easy to look at, and I was commenting earlier before it started, just that I didn't have the comparisons like
Sure.
we used to.
Sure.
But a lot of times that's in your software. So if we ask you to do that, that's how they would come from here on out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we can do that for you if you'd
So
like.
are
I
we in a
agree, it's-
position we can make how do we do that?
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is know what the nominal fee is.
Sure. Yep, and I'll have to go back and look at.
Okay.
Nominal
It's
over
based
my
on-
time has had a wide range.
I'd assume
so-
it's $5 or less. It's
I think that would be de
it's already in the-
minimis.
it's already in the software.
I'm assuming that's gonna be your quote now, so.
Basically, what it would be is the time to set up the system to do that, and then going forward, there wouldn't be any charge.
But now we have 2 years in it. It should be pretty easily. And wouldn't it be more than just printing a different print selection?
No, it actually would be adding columns to this. It's an Excel spreadsheet, so we'd have to do linking for another column and everything, so there's more work.
Does
that
anybody
goes
else
into it.
besides me think it's important?
well, there's some of them that is ready, if you look at page 12.
There's
we have
just
some
a few of them,
comparison.
yeah.
So it depends upon how in-depth we want it. I think for the most part, I guess what I would be more interested in would be like your major funds of how they changed over the course of
Sure.
2 years and stuff like that. But, I mean, some of these other things, I don't know if that.
So when we select that option, does it include a whole bunch of reports? Do you just do a standard thing?
Be whatever you want it to be.
But what do you have, what's our availability? Are you manually driving all of this in your system?
We-
Or is this software that's producing from the data that you stuck in there?
The way it works is we design it up front, and then going forward, it rolls forward from there. And there's some adjustments we have to make each year, but it's the initial setup and we can design it however we want.
Yeah, I didn't think much of it last year because we only had 1 year with you guys.
Sure.
But now we got 2, and there's some of this, if you just have at least a quick glance of what took place the year before, you have a basis.
Sure. Well, maybe we'll do this. I'll work
Why
with
don't you-
Bob, and we'll kind of hammer out what we can do.
There you go, Bruce, we can go grab your ones from last year, grab it, and then you can compare it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was looking at.
I was too.
But it used to be then I had 4 years.
Yeah.
Because I could grab one from 2 years before that, and I could look at 4 years really quickly.
Sure.
To see if we were at least flowing the right direction.
Sure. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Let's talk really quick about the other report. And the other report talks more about how did the audit itself go. did we have any issues going through the audit? And so if we go to page 2, I'm just gonna run through the punch list really quick here on what's all included, and then I'll open it up for more questions if you want. But it talks about if we have any issues with your accounting policies, or if you changed any accounting policies, which did not happen. Everything looked really good there. If you remember last year, we had that new standard that was adopted for pensions. That's all taken care of now. It talks about if we saw any unusual transactions, did we have any disagreements with management? There were no issues with that as well. It talks about audit adjustments, which we've kind of already talked about. That's that material audit adjustment thing I was talking about earlier. There's also what we call an uncorrected misstatement section in here. And what that's talking about is if we're going through the audit, we see something pretty small, we have the ability of giving that clean opinion, that unmodified opinion, and not adjusting it. And so we have a couple things actually relating to some cleanup that happened last year. You're seeing the year 2 effects of it. Disagreements with management, I think I already said that. There were none. Consultation with other accountants. What that's talking about is if you didn't like our opinion for some reason, you did some opinion shopping with another firm, that's where it would get reported. You're getting the best opinion you can get, so I don't know why that would happen. Issues, difficulties, there were none. And then the remaining book here is just a list of the audit adjustments we posted, so if you want to take a look, you certainly could. Any other questions
Yeah, did you have a disclaimer in here?
related to?
Yeah, I didn't see it in here, which was interesting to me. A lot of times I see stuff from accountants and auditors, and it'll all kind of narrows down to a sentence that says, this is all based upon the information that was given to us.
Oh, that's a good question, actually. It's not included in here, but at the end of the audit, there's what's called the management representation letter that's signed. And what that is, it's a probably three-page letter or so that your management signs for us, and it talks about that they've given us everything we've asked for, they haven't lied to us, they don't know of any fraud, there's no theft, no litigation, that kind of thing. And so it's covered in another document. Yeah. Other questions at all?
Very good report. Jumping us around like that, bringing us to the stuff that we're interested in, and I thought your analysis of our interests was, for me, was pretty accurate.
Good, that's good to hear. Well, I gotta have you jump around a little bit to keep the blood flowing a little so you don't nod off on everything.
Yeah, no, you did well.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need to adopt this here.
I'll make a motion that we approve the audit, audit for 2015-16 school year.
I got a motion from Bruce.
Second.
Second from Lou. Any other further discussions? Anybody in the audience? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Number 2, review truth and taxation information for taxes payable 2017.
And Steve is here to present our truth and taxation.
Board members, the presentation's on the screen behind you. If you want to watch that, where I know last time you kind of came up in the audience up here.
Yeah, I think we can move.
Yep.
Sure, twice. It's part of the calisthenics that John asked me to do, kind of get up and move around. And John said he likes to be listened to, so I really like to be listened to. So we may be going to 10 o'clock.
Please.
Okay, Bob, and if you just don't mind hitting the slide. Yeah, perfect. Every school district in the state of Minnesota is required to have a truth and taxation hearing, and you're having yours tonight. You're required to have it no earlier than November 24th, and you have to have it before you set your actual levy, and that has to be done by December 31st. So obviously, you're doing both of those tonight, and you're fulfilling that requirement, and there's 3 things that have to happen during the truth and taxation hearing. and there was a listed on that slide right there. You have to talk about the school year, the current school year budget. So you just heard the audit from last year's, how you came out, so we talked about this year. You need to talk about the levy that you're planning on approving, which is on your agenda for tonight. And the final requirement is you have to allow anybody who wants to talk about that, so the public, to comment as part of this hearing. So that will be the last part of the presentation tonight. Board members, I think most of you know that the levy is certainly not just something that happens on December 6th. It's really a long-standing process that Bob and and Joan and their staff goes through, starting actually even before June, but sending information to the MDE, the Department of Education. A lot of that has to do with enrollment, drives a lot of your levy, and so they're estimating enrollments and estimating some other things that the MD is collecting. Then in August, you actually set the time and date of this hearing, so that was set back in August and given to the county auditor, so it could be put on the tax statements. In September, board members, you remember that you certified a preliminary levy, and that happened, and that information was used by the county when they mailed out the levy notices that happened in November, and they're required to get those out before November 24th. So your residents have all received those. And then in December, actually late November, you could have the public hearing and certify your final tax levy. And again, that's on tonight's agenda. So in 2017, we'll start with the first requirement. We're talking about your current year budget. You currently have 5 funds that you account for, and that John just talked about in his presentation. So you have the general fund, the food service fund, the community service fund, your building construction fund, and a debt service fund. I have asterisks next to the 3 funds that have a tax levy component to that, and that's the general fund, your community service fund, and your debt service fund. If we look at your budget summary, so this was what was board approved, you can see the revenues in each of those 5 funds and the expected expenditures in each of those 5 funds. And kind of just pointing out as a third party here, that you'll notice that almost all your funds are very well balanced. Your general fund has a surplus of nearly $269,000. So when Bob talked about expanding the $450,000 increase that you had in your general fund last year, if all these numbers came through exactly as they showed up there, you would add to that fund balance of roughly $269,000. So you'd be getting close to that $1 million goal of unrestricted balance that Mr. Hewitt was talking about. Your food service, is pretty close to being balanced, a little bit of a surplus. Community ed fund is really right on it. Your construction fund is one fund that normally would not be a balanced fund, and I just want to make sure board members understand that. Normally speaking, when you have a construction fund, you're sold bonds, and so all that money comes in at one point in time, and then you expend it over a period of years as long as the construction happens. So the $500 of revenue is really just expected interest earnings. And you have more expenses that are going on for there. So that's why that would be balanced. And your debt service fund normally is going to be very close to being balanced. However, we'll get through this as we go through the levy process. Sometimes you collect less revenue than you have expenses going out because you've collected more revenue in previous years that the state now tells you have to give back to your taxpayers. And so that's why they wouldn't match up necessarily. Graphically, we are showing where the revenues come, or how much revenues come from on all those different 5 funds. You'll notice that the general fund makes up the biggest portion, 85%. And again, the general fund, for the refresher for board members and certainly for the public, is really all the money that goes straight into education for the kids, including all the teacher salaries, all your support salaries, your maintenance salaries, your utilities, your transportation. So the lion's share of what goes on in a district is run through the general fund. Food service is pretty self-explanatory. It's for the breakfast and lunches that are served to your students. And I guess the important thing I should say about all these different funds is you cannot commingle those. I mean, you can't take some food service money and use it to pay your media center teachers, as an example. I mean, it's set for that. And your debt service fund, of course, is pay off all the bonds. Oops.
Did I go too far?
No. Well, we
Yep.
go the backwards though.
Yep.
There we go. So we went through there.
Okay.
Okay, so then This is probably more important for the tax levy conversation, is where does the revenue come from? And the 18% is coming from the property taxes, so that's what we're talking about tonight. 71% is coming from state aid, 4% from federal, and other is 7%, which is usually local money, meaning like your gate receipts for your football games and your lunch receipts and those type of things as well. Going back to board comments about, what did this look like last year? Actually, this was identical percentage for last year. So last year, for the levy process, you received 71% state aid and 18% property taxes, 4%. So that hasn't changed at all. The FY17 budget expenditures by fund, and actually, I should make this comment too, just for board members' education. The FY17 budget, all these numbers are really based on the levy that you collected for last year. So the levy that the board set is funding your FY17 issue. The levy that you are setting right now tonight will fund your FY18 budget. So the expenditures by fund, again, 84% going to the general fund, and you can see the other percentages as well. Normally, for all districts, the expenditures mirror very much the revenues, and because most districts try to have pretty close to balanced budgets. So you had 85% coming in of revenue, 84% is going out in expenditures in the general fund. Where does the money go to by program area? Again, it shows you graphically where that money is being spent. I use my little pointer here again. The combination of these three pieces of the pie, special education, vocational education, and elementary and secondary regular instruction, that's direct classroom expenditures, and that total is 54%. So 54% of your entire budget, including all your debt service, is going to the classroom directly, and that can be in the form of mostly teachers' pay and benefits, but also supplies that are going to in the classrooms as well. Your administration, a lot of people like to point that out, that's 5%. It has historically been 5%, so you're right on there. That's a good number. Most districts are between that 4 and 5% area as well.
So you look at the pupil support services and the instructional support services?
Yep.
Would you consider that going directly to classrooms too? Or is it because it's not specific instruction?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a little bit different. The pupil support services, usually what makes up the large component of that is transportation. There are some other things in there as well, but this is a description by the state of Minnesota, so it's called pupil support, but it really is transporting your kids to and from school.
That makes
There's other
sense.
people, yeah.
Because it looks like, if you look at it.
At the name, you're right.
Hey, we're
I
doing
agree.
really good because we contain all the revenue.
Yeah, instructional support services, a lot of times that can be clerical expenditures, not district-wide clerical, but your high school clerical, your elementary clerical, that's what's going into some of those expenditures as well.
Is this year very typical for every other school system?
Yeah, I would say it's really typical. Again, just because schools are very similar all over the place as far as the vast majority of your expenditures are going to go to personnel costs, and the vast majority of your personnel normally are teachers. And so that's going to be very consistent. Yep. Transportation actually can vary quite a bit from district to district, depending on the size and the population of it. Okay, so now we're switching from your 2017 budget to your levy that's payable in 2017, which again will be used to when the board approves its fiscal year 18 budget. So what we do here is look side by side, so last year's levy, which is this column, and the proposed levy that you're going to take action on at tonight's meeting, and that column. So the general fund, and I have all the different line items there, you can read, and on a future slide I'll point out the large increases or decreases, but you can certainly have this for your reference. But in total is going down by $10,000, which is 0.8%. So last year it was $1,331,000. The levy for next year is proposed at $1,320,000. So you can see it's, while there's some increases and decreases on line items, in total it's very, very close.
So how was our proposed levy in 2016 compared to the actual? Very close, would you guess, from last year?
Oh, this is your actual last
Yep.
year. So the levy payable in 2016, that's exactly what you're
Yeah,
looking
but the proposed levy from last year compared to the proposed levy here. So the 2017 is proposed, last year we would have looked at a 2016 proposed.
Oh, that, okay. What,
Probably
what,
almost identical.
it was identical, yeah. So what you looked
So
at
we
for
actually, for
proposed,
the Paynesville Press, are gonna be able to communicate to the people of the district that our levy is going down for this year.
well, just a second, let's look at the total.
Yeah.
Here, this is one, you have three components to your levy. You have your general
Okay.
fund, you have your community ed, and you have your debt service. So let's look at
Okay.
the total. But on the general fund part, it's going down by $10,000. That
Okay,
is true. Okay, so then we look at the community ed part, so actually, this is pretty easy math. You see that the, last year's community ed levy was $80,000, this year's proposed to be $90,000, so a $9,000 increase. So now, I took
care of
those two
most of
funds, I
it.
took care of that, okay? And you can see that that was the one component, and if Bob wants to chime in here, that's fine, but it went
We had
up-
talked last year about this at this particular piece, that we had not put that piece in there and it was needed, so.
So last year, what actually happened, and it's interesting you asked that question, Bruce, is that the only component that you chose to what's called under levy, so not levying as much authority as you had, was this specific item. So last year, you could have levied $29,301, and the reason I know that is because you specifically levied $10,000 less. So this year, you can levy $27,865, and you are choosing to levy that full amount, as opposed to, waiving $10,000 of that levy authority. Unless the board takes different action tonight, but the.
and that's going
Yeah.
to early childhood family education.
Yes, part of the reason that it's needed now is because of our PAWS program. And what we're doing with that for the care of the kids afterwards, and we have a number of students who have some disabilities. So we need the budget for that piece.
Okay, and actually, and it's working out maybe by, some luck, so to speak, but it's a good year to do it because you had, again, you had a $10,000 less levy in your general fund, and so now you can afford this $10,000 would have a very little impact on your taxpayers.
So behind door number,
Oh, let's go, yep, door number 3. There you see a big increase. So
Okay.
this is based on, you only have voter-approved debt in this district. I mean, some districts have non-voter-approved debt. In your case, you don't. So when you had your elections in the past, your referendums to build and supplement your school buildings, you created debt. And every year you have to pay back the principal and interest. And the way your debt's structured is that you have $89,000 more of principal and interest payments next year than you had this past year. Okay, so that's just how your bond principal and interest debt payments were structured. So that's causing an increase of roughly, $95,000 total, or almost $96,000 in your debt, because we also have, let me start this off in the beginning. When you collect more money than you need to pay your debt, and I should educate the board again on this, your principal and interest payments, by law, you have to levy 105% of those. And the reason for that is because sometimes people don't pay out their taxes. But the district has to make those bond payments so that your bondholders get paid. So the state has that law, so every district has to levy for 105%. Well, if you do collect all that money, that 5% is gonna build up over time, right? So there's a formula in place, it's not that complicated, but it's like over a 3-year period of time, that determines how much money do we have to give back because we've overcollected. So last year you had to give back $49,000. This year you're only giving back only $44,000. So it's really an adjustment of $4,700 higher than it was last year because you just don't have as large of an adjustment. So that's why the impact in total is up almost $96,000.
so I'm not quite unclear about the voter-approved debt service. So we let the bonds, do we have some bonds that are increasing interest rates as we go?
No, they're set.
It's
So
not-
what
it's
exactly
not
is
percentage.
causing that?
It was the
Is it kind of
structure. So the financial advisor who you used when you sold those bonds
Yeah,
structured your debt in such a way that the principal and interest changed, not the interest rates, but I mean, it's a set. I mean, we can look at your structure until it's retired. And sometimes they do that really for two different reasons. Sometimes it's called wrapping around existing debt. So if you have one bond issue that's going to be retired and you're paying $200,000, let's say, on that, and you're paying $400,000 on your other debt issue, they may say, okay, well, that next year it's going to be $600,000 out of that issue because we lost that $200,000 payment. Okay, but then you would see this, like, no increase. It'd be just steady, you're just paying it. Sometimes, you're doing this like usually over a 20-year period of time. They're saying, well, okay, our belief, and I'm making this up, but 10 years ago when these bonds were sold, they could say, well, Paynesville's trend is that their tax base is growing, 2% or 4% or 5% per year. And so in 10 years from now, they'll be able to absorb this additional principal and interest payment and have the same impact on taxpayers. Because if your tax base is growing, you're getting more residents in, there's more residents to pay out this debt. So sometimes financial advisors, when they set up their debt payments, they're just making these assumptions that, this is what will happen. Sometimes they come true, sometimes they don't. But the fact is, this is what your payment structure is.
I have to look at that, because that surprises me, actually. Because I remember the whole wraparound part, that what we talked about. I didn't realize it, because technically, then if that is $89,000, are we gonna add roughly $89,000 for 10 years in addition to the original levy? But at the end of the day, did we not cost the taxpayers more money?
No, I don't think I think it'd be the same as far as that. I think Joan and I looked at this a little bit because we had noticed that. I think that it was set up before I got here, so it was one of the bonds.
It was one of the, so that has to do with that, the auditorium thing.
Yes.
Okay, I remember
That's
that.
what Joan and I believe. Now, why it was set this way, I can't,
Yeah.
neither one of us could tell you.
And I can't.
But we
say-
did talk
But
about
that's
it.
what's
We don't know.
driving this one then.
We believe that's accurate, yes.
Okay, now that makes some sense, because I do remember that was on a scale of some sort. And that was from, what, 2005 or something?
Yeah, I think that's the one that goes off in 2020.
Okay, so if that went off in 2020, that would tend to go away. What we have already wouldn't necessarily increase for the
No.
taxpayers.
Well,
We might see the taxes
in
go down.
2020, you would see the taxes go down unless something else was added.
I gotcha. So nothing that we have done, though, has caused this. It was
No,
something that was.
it's just how the
a long time
structure
ago.
was.
It's
yes.
just, when we looked at it, it was just the structure, what we believe is how that originally was set up.
Mhm.
We just don't know why they decided to do it.
I remember reading on that one, something about that when we were looking at it a little closer.
So then, when we add all those three magic doors together, you'll see that your total levy goes up $94,000, $94,500, which is a 4.38% increase. Okay, so that could be one of your headlines in the paper, right there. Or if we go to the next few slides. Oh, sorry, sorry, I stole my thunder. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. So just go ahead.
Okay.
So now I'm going to explain some of the large increases and decreases that were on the slides previous. So part of this, and hopefully the board can understand this or at least appreciate this. The fact that your levy is going up a certain dollar amount doesn't mean that the district is getting any more money. There's components that are based on statutory formulas that say how much money is going to come in the form of state aid and how much money is going to come from the local taxpayers. And part of that is to do with what's called your referendum market value of the district. So the referendum market value in your district, meaning if you take all the properties put together and the valuation and how much tax they can pay, comes up with a number, and that's growing slightly, and that's on a future slide, but it's growing a little bit. But you also are having some declining enrollment, roughly 2% is your projected enrollment growth. So what they do is they take the total referendum market value and they divide it by the number of students, and it comes up with a dollar amount per student. Now, the higher number that you have per student means the state believes your local people have a better capability to pay more of their share of a certain revenue amount. So because your referendum market value is going up a little bit and your student population is declining some, that means they believe you are a wealthier district per kid, so you have to pay a larger share of this revenue. So the local optional revenue, as an example, you're gonna pay $12,000 more without collecting any additional revenue. The voter-approved referendum, you're paying $14,000 more without collecting additional revenue. Actually, you're getting less revenue. The equity piece, again, your equation is paying $13,000 more, and your capital project referendum is $10,000. So, you know, that's about $50,000 worth of additional taxpayer burden without $50,000 of additional revenue. It just means that the state's saying, we believe that Paynesville taxpayers can pay more money.
Because of declining enrollment?
Because declining enrollment and your referendum market value.
So all the schools that have declining enrollment are running into about the same thing?
Well, they could be unless
Most of them are
their
also-
referendum market value is going down, and that is the case in some places. In some places, their market value, again, the value of all the properties in the district is declining. And that certainly has happened over the past, maybe not last year, but, 5-year period of time, because a lot of market value is going down. So that was happening. Last year, we saw actually probably more increases. And again, you're gonna see you have a very small increase here, but there's still some districts that are still suffering from market value loss. Yeah, but it's very common if you're losing enrollment and your market value is going up, you are going to pay a higher share of taxes. So then we have some legislative changes that took place that the school district wouldn't have any control over, and this is, good or bad, and this is the impact of those. So there is a student achievement levy that's being phased out by the state, so you're receiving roughly $14,000 less this year than you did last year. And then in taxes payable in 2018, that will be zero, so there'll be another $14,000 decrease, so to speak, because the state legislature has phased that over a 2-year period of time. So that actually is money lost though for you. You actually are truly losing money, but the taxpayers are paying less money too. Your long-term facility maintenance, LTFM as referred to, you may remember this from last year. Last year was the first year part of the program. And if I look at these bullets right here, it's being phased in over a 3-year period of time. So last year on your levy, you were, in all districts, were able to levy for $193 per pupil unit. This year, which equates to $68,000, is $292 per pupil unit, or the levy portion of that anyways. And then next year, it will go up to $380. So this number will probably go up again next year. I mean, there'll be a bigger component on the levy as well. And again, those monies are designed to use so you can have a way without going to the voters to fix your roofs, or to fix your gym, or to fix your floors, or your parking lots, or your boilers, or other type of things, without having to go to the voters necessarily for approval to sell some bonds. And then your operating capital actually went down, so this is a good thing for the taxpayers, by $36,000. It doesn't mean that you are receiving fewer dollars in operating capital. You will receive a little bit fewer because you have less students. But this is one of those formulas that's working in your favor. This word equalization means what proportion is the state going to pay, and what proportion is the local taxpayers are going to pay. And they raise that percentage for all districts that the state will pay a higher amount. So you are going to have to collect from your local taxpayers roughly $36,000 less than you would have if they hadn't changed that formula.
Replacing the health and safety dollars?
Yep.
So theoretically, I don't know whatever happened to those mats in the gym. I'm not sure that
We're going to have to replace them,
so that.
at least a part of them.
Yeah, now it's $50,000, right?
Yes. And
And so-
that would have been, yeah, all of it, I would guess.
That will come out of this fund?
It will come out of
It could come out of that, or it could come out of capital.
it could come out of that or come out of capital.
And the $68,000 is not the total amount of revenue you're getting from that program. This is the total amount that's the levy component of it.
Right, but we did lose the health and safety, so on one hand, they gave us more.
Yep.
On the other hand, they did take,
They did take
Some
some
away
away, but
from
in
us.
total, and I
Yes.
don't have those numbers specific for Paynesville tonight, but in total, you are going to get more money
Yes.
under this program than you did under the old health and safety program.
right.
But do you think that's enough to cover some of the roofs and stuff? Or does it get swallowed up in some of the rest of the stuff?
It's hard for me to say that for sure for your district, but it certainly is a step in the right direction.
What we're able to do now, Bruce, is through this plan, and whoever's on our equipment and facilities piece, when we talk about that, probably right after the winter break, we'll be able to save money for those projects. So we're running into a couple issues now, talking about my report, boiler, for instance. We've got a boiler problem right now. But we're going to be able to save for some of those things. You know, we still, out of our facilities dollars that we had from the project that we had, we still have one more project that we're able to do with that. We're hoping to add additional dollars to that, so it's a bigger project because of the long-term facility maintenance. If without that, we would go back to having to borrow money in order to do
So
those
you
types
think
of
this is a
projects.
good idea and it's not gonna take us backwards? It should
It
take us
is the
forward.
best thing the state has done to us in regards to facilities forever.
It's wonderful.
So call our
the-
politicians, so it goes on further?
Yes, the
2019?
Twin Cities have been able to do this forever.
Well, the top 20, the
20
top
top
20
20
districts in the
Yep.
state, which were all the Twin
Could
Cities
do it.
districts, yep.
Yep, so.
Without
they-
voter approval.
Yes.
So
They-
that's some of what CTAC.
All they really did see, I think, certainly talks about equity, and certainly they were a push to get us this type of thing. From my perspective anyway, all we're getting is what those larger districts have been able to do for, God, I don't know how many years.
Lots, yeah.
They've been able to levy, to fix their things without going to anybody to be able to do that. This is just equalizing the playing field a little bit for the rural districts, or the smaller districts, I should say, probably.
Okay, Bob?
Yep.
No, that's good, yep. All right, so this is where I was going for, before. Okay, so your total levy increases by 4.38%. Your referendum market value is going up by 0.5%. No, I'm sorry, not even 0.5%, by 0.1%, yep. And your net tax capacity, which is another tax component on what measures how much people pay, is going up by 0.71%. And what that means is on the next slide, Bob. So if a person's property is valued at the same in 2017 as it was in 2016, a $100,000 home will have an increase of roughly $13 or 4.65%. And you can read those three other homes I have on there as well, up to $250. So, while the impact may be, roughly 4.5%, the dollar amount certainly seems pretty negligible for your homeowners in the district, I would say. Other factors that may affect people's individual property tax statements are increases or decreases in the valuation. So on that previous slide, remember I'm saying the valuation stayed the same. So if you had a $100,000 home and the value also increased to a $125,000 home, you're going to have corresponding larger tax impact because the valuation increased. And then another thing I always want to point out is the presentation that we're talking about tonight and the action that you are taking as school board members is strictly on the school district portion of the tax, of your tax statement. So when people receive their property tax notifications, they certainly are going to have an item for the county. They're going to have an item for the city. They're going to have an item for the school district, which is your portion. And they may have, I'm not sure if Paynesville is in a territory that has a special taxing district, but sometimes there's a fourth line for, like the metro area has like the mosquito control district, and sometimes there's some special taxing districts as well. But again, remember that you are talking about just a school district portion of the tax statement. There is some property tax relief for people who qualify. I know that oftentimes, Bob, you put this on your website in this presentation, so if residents are looking for a place to go, there's the website to go to get those forms. And then the administration is recommending to certify a dollar amount. At your preliminary meeting, you were able to use a mechanism called a maximum amount in case some numbers changed. At tonight's meeting, you have to certify a dollar amount to the penny, and that's the number that is you're able to certify and be recommended to certify tonight. And then the last slide brings it back to you, Mr. Chair, to open the meeting up for public comments.
Okay, so we heard that wonderful presentation. Is there anybody here for public comment? Hearing none, I'd recommend a motion to approve.
That's just for this one. Now you would go to the next one, which is to review and consider approval,
Number 3.
which is the next step.
Okay, let me skip to that one. Okay, number 3, review and consider approval of the final 2016 payable 2017 levy certification.
I'll make that motion.
And a motion from Bruce.
Second.
Second from Lou. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Number 4, set the date for the January 2017 school board.
Yep, that's our organizational meeting. It's also when the new board member is brought on board, and Kella we have one more meeting before I have to wish you well and thank you, so I'm gonna wait till that. But what we're recommending is Tuesday, January 17th. It's a little further back, but it would help us immensely in our office to be able to get a few things done before that meeting, because there's only one meeting in January, and that would allow us to get the bills and stuff prepared a little bit easier if we move it back a little bit later.
So what does everybody think?
When's your MSBA conference?
Yeah, it's not conflicting with the
No.
conference at all.
No.
No, that's
So-
right after the conference.
Whatever you,
It's after the conference.
yeah, whatever you think.
Typically do.
Anyway.
Yeah,
Yep,
Yeah, that works.
yep, this works.
So I would take a motion to set that date. I think we should have one for that one.
I'll
too.
make a motion for January 17th.
I'll second.
so I got a motion from Heidi and a second from Cheryl.
At 6 o'clock, I'm assuming?
6 o'clock?
That's January 17th?
Yep. Okay. So January 17th at 6 PM here. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Okay, do I have any other thing underneath business?
Nothing under business, just the personnel. Then.
All right, number 1, review and consider approval of the resignation request for Suzanne Teicher, Fitness Center employee effective November 29th, 2016.
No, we would thank her for her work for us, and I'd certainly recommend approval.
I'll make a motion.
I got a motion from Heidi,
Second.
second from Kella. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Number 2, review and consider approval of hiring Brett Bungham, custodial / maintenance, effective December 8th, 2016.
As the board, is a reminder just to the board, we have been shorthanded. We had a resignation that we have not been able to fill. We're excited to be able to fill that position.
I'll make a motion. I have a motion from Kella and a second from Mark. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and carried. Informational reports, West Central Educational District, Lou Storkamp.
Let's see, we met November 21st at Sox Center, and we went over the audit, same as tonight, and we talked about some programs, updates, and so on and so forth. But the main thing I wanted to talk about a little bit about was they had a career and college fair day, November 22nd. And I talked to some of the staff, and I guess it really went over real well. What that consists of is the Beacon program allowed the 9th to 12th graders to come over to the ALC and attend this sessions. They had little sessions from different retailers and business people in the area. They had Kramer Lumber, I'll just name off a few, Felling Trailer, Redhead Creamery, and massage therapy, Midwest Machinery, and interior design. And it went down the line. Large animal vet, computer programming, Jenny O, Bear Built, Fire Department, Coburn's, Learning Tree, Child Care. And they all met, and they met in different rooms and talked to each individual, or each individual group of students. And it was real, I guess the kids just really enjoyed it. And military was there also from, I don't remember where, I think it was from Alex for one. And the National Guard and Riverwater College and St. Cloud State University, Central Lakes Community College attended. And that also went over very well. And I'll just, the Beacon program has a mission statement I'd like to read. It provides students with life skills necessary to be healthy individuals through social skill building, mental health awareness, and academic instructions. That's the Beacon program, which is in Sauk Center. And Melrose ALC has their mission statement is to maximize every student's educational experience by providing high-quality service to students, family, and member districts. And I think this whole ALC and Beacon programs are a real good opportunity for students that have special needs. And that's all I have, unless somebody has questions.
Is that those statements and stuff, was that something new that they came up with, or have they been having those?
They've always
was
had
that
mission
those-
statements.
I
but-
didn't know if they went through a thing like we did recently.
Oh, they,
or-
not recently, Bob, I think that's all, they've had that for.
They've had that for a while
long time.
now. Yeah, I don't think they've gone through a strategic plan building
No.
piece since I've been there.
It's not since I've been.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right. Administrative meeting report?
Yeah, just a few things. Jamie Borrell is the one that was helped us with the solar garden. He just gave me a little bit of an update on that, and they just got approval from Excel for a 5-megawatt garden that we're gonna hopefully join the subscription. So I'm going to have him come out probably after January. Right now, he's pretty busy, and when we bring the new board member on, just to give the community and the board a reminder about that solar garden piece that we've done and give us an update on it. But right now, he's excited. He thinks that the garden that they're looking at putting us into will give us 100% of the energy that we had requested. So we'll get an update of that in January. December 20th, just a reminder to the board, that board meeting is at 1 o'clock. That's the meeting that we have the students come to. So just a reminder about the change. We have a facilities meeting on Thursday, this Thursday, the 8th at 6 o'clock, the Elementary Media Center, 6 p.m. So that'd be in the Elementary Media Center again, and public is certainly welcome to attend that. MSBA Leadership Conference is the 12th and 13th. You're all registered for that, so we're all set for that. Garrick and I, we came in and talked about the one-to-one initiative. We're starting to work on a newspaper article that'll go in the paper. We'll take that to the Technology Committee meeting. Our next one, I think we're looking at the 14th, I think, in that time frame. Once we run it past the Technology Committee, then we'll put it in the paper just to start informing our public of what we're looking at doing. So we're working on that now. The day that we had parent-teacher conferences that Friday, we did get the snowstorm, and some staff we did release early, and we're in the process of working with the principals in the building. The morning, the staff are logging time for parent-teacher conference, those types of things, calls to parents. That in the afternoon, my principals are going to put together a plan that's consistent with both buildings about making up the afternoon time. Also, just be aware that we had some issues with one of the boilers in our elementary school. At one time, we were a little concerned we would not be able to fix it. It's in an area, the leak's in an area that is a stamped area, which is a high-pressure area, and we weren't sure if we could get it fixed or not. We believe we have talked to a boiler person, and we believe we can get it fixed, but I know that when we look at our 10-year plan, I know that part of that discussion will be looking at a replacement of some type for at least one of the boilers in our elementary school.
Is there a leak in the cast iron?
There's a leak. I'm not exactly sure. I just know it was in a stamped area, but I'm assuming, I think the whole boiler is virtually out of cast iron. But what we're hearing is that wherever this leak is, we should be able to get fixed. We were concerned that we wouldn't be able to and would be forced to do something yet this year to have at least one more
So
boiler
if
in
you have a
that.
leak coming through the cast iron, what are they saying? Sometimes that's a real good leader, that there might be more of that stuff coming.
Well-
It's not like tubes. Tubes you
No.
expect to wear out. Cast iron,
I think what you're gonna hear me say when we come back with our long-term maintenance plan is that we need to replace one of the boilers in one manner or the other come spring.
It's 1956 boiler.
yeah. And see, I never have any concern about them till something goes wrong with the cast iron.
Yep. So,
Then
and-
you maybe.
And I can certainly update the board on that as far as where exactly the leak was and whether it was through cast iron. I just know that it was in a place that we weren't sure that they could repair. So that leads me to believe it's probably time to look at at least replacing one of those in one manner or another, and that'll give us some time to do it. If we can get it repaired, I would certainly rather do that, but we need to look at the cost estimate to get it repaired before we make a decision on what path we go.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to at least take care of one. To have issues with one, well, you got one good boiler, you need to have that second boiler in case for a backup. So one way or another, we need to be sure that we can heat our buildings.
Well, for the years from the hardware store way back when you had cast iron and a hole started coming through the cast iron, it was a lot like when I grew up and you had a muffler and you had the first hole, next thing the whole muffler was going.
Yeah.
And
I would
that's a pretty serious thing when
Yeah.
it's coming through the cast iron.
I would prefer to wait till spring before we
Yeah.
do something, and that'll give us enough time for us to take a look at our options. I would hate to
But
be
the other
rushed
one's
into
big enough to
something.
run things.
It is, but if you don't have a backup,
But you
There's no
change,
backup.
you
Yeah.
switch over anyhow at night to the other boiler.
yeah, and I can check with Donnie to see if it was through the cast iron or a different piece of steel or something. I'll update the board on that next time. I'm not 100% sure on that. I just know that we're getting a quote on what it will cost us to fix the issue that we're having right now.
Well, 66 years is a pretty good lifetime. If it's 1950.
It is.
56 is what-
But that's for a discussion for the facilities and equipment committee to look at when we look at the 5-year and 10-year plan. And we'll certainly come back to the board with a recommendation. That's all I have.
One question about the solar
Garden?
gardens. Is he gonna be able to answer any information on what we will be able to do for the kids, for their experience on learning?
To tell you the truth, what I would rather do with that, number one, we can certainly check with the city to see if that is, because their garden is closer by. But personally, I really want to go through the Minnesota Solar Incentive Program. We applied for that last year, didn't get it. We'll apply again this year when it comes up. That would enable us, if we can get picked, to put a small solar garden right, I'd put it right in that fenced-in area by the Reserve Center, and we'd use that as our piece for education.
If we can do that, if we can't, then what are,
My intent is that we're gonna get accepted to that.
okay.
Well, and if we don't, if you need access to one that you could monitor pretty well, but we have some of the personal ones that are around now.
Yeah.
They're smaller, they're low to the ground, they're not up on a roof, they're not in where it's too technical, but I'm with Mark 100% on that one. If we can get the kids educated in that, that's the future.
Yeah, I'm assuming that there's some monitoring that we can do at the very least, so, but that's a great question for Jamie, and I will let him know that we're gonna ask him that question.
And then on our conferences, did we get to have the opportunity to talk to a lot of the parents regarding the one-to-one initiative?
I will have, what I'd like to have is, Garrick, we had a number of parents fill out the survey. We had we didn't have a ton of parents come in, but I think, at least what I'm hearing is that our staff were really good about explaining it. So there weren't a lot of questions. With the parents that came in when I was visiting this area, wanted to see what it looked like and to have a little bit of discussion, but overall, I think the reaction was pretty positive. And when Garrick will bring the information to the technology meeting, and then we'll bring it forward to the whole board.
Okay.
But I think what we're hearing so far is very positive.
All right, any other board sharing?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn. You got a motion from Lou and a second from Heidi. Any other further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried.